In November 1963, 7 news reporters carried the casket of JFK's assassin Lee Harvey Oswald, because no mourners were present to serve as pallbearers. Even the minister who had agreed to officiate didn't attend. Journalist Mike Cochran reported carrying Oswald's inexpensive pine casket to a grave on a slight rise dotted with dying grass. Footnote: following his 1981 exhumation, Oswald's coffin was sold at auction in 2010 for more than $87,000. But Oswald's brother Robert successfully sued to block the sale. The casket was last reported to be in storage. A pallbearer, usually a family member or friend of the deceased, carries the casket from the church to the hearse, and later from the hearse to the graveside. Both men and women can be pallbearers. In fact, women were first permitted to serve as pallbearers at the 1768 funeral of Princess Louisa of Great Britain. Until then, they had only participated in funerals as mourners or as the chief mourner's attendants. An article about the funeral published in the London Gazette shows a diagram of the coffin with the names of the 4 women designated as supporters of the pall. Although the women didn't carry the casket itself, carrying the pall was considered a great honor. But what exactly is a pall?
I simply can't remember.
The term comes from the Latin word pallium, meaning a cloak or covering. In ancient times, it was common to cover the bodies of the deceased with a cloth as a sign of respect and dignity. During the medieval period in Europe, the practice of using a pall became more formalized, particularly within Christian traditions. In Christian funerals, the pall symbolizes the righteousness of Christ that covers the deceased. The Catholic Church has a long tradition of using palls during funeral masses. Footnote: this painting depicts the funeral of Raymond Diocre, a Parisian professor who died in 1081. The scene shows Diocre, reputed to be virtuous, coming back to life in his coffin just long enough to inform the assembly that God had judged his soul and sentenced him to eternal damnation. One of his students, Bruno of Cologne, was so affected by this miracle that he decided to leave his civil life behind and become a monk. His decision led to the founding of the Order of Carthusians, which exists to this day. During the Renaissance and into the 19th century, palls became increasingly elaborate, often made from expensive fabrics and adorned with intricate designs. They were seen not only as religious symbols but also as a way to display the wealth and status of the deceased's family. These fancy funeral palls were frequently gifted to the church to be repurposed into altar cloths or vestments. While still used in religious ceremonies, palls are now often simpler in design. Military funerals use a flag, but some services don't use a pall at all. Depending on their size and construction materials, caskets can weigh up to 400 pounds, not including the weight of the deceased. Traditionally, there are 6 to 8 pallbearers, 1 for each handle on the casket. With 6 pallbearers, 3 stand on each side of the casket. If there are 8, 2 additional pallbearers stand at the front and back. In the United States, caskets are typically carried at waist height. A notable pallbearer was a Revolutionary War lieutenant named George Coryell. Coryell is memorialized as one of the 6 pallbearers who, according to his 1850 obituary, bore the body of the father of his country to the tomb. Lieutenant Coryell, who knew George Washington from the Masonic Lodge, stepped in as a last-minute replacement for a pallbearer who was too ill, or, some said, too weak, to participate. And that lays to rest a brief history of pallbearers. For something contemporary, check out this video of Coffin Dance, the dancing pallbearers of Ghana.
Thanks for watching.